Welcome to the great multi-core deception, a world where marketing departments use big numbers to mask a plateau in actual innovation. Today, we are going to dismantle the myth of the high core count and find out exactly where the point of diminishing returns turns into a cliff. If you want to stop being a victim of the silicon cycle and start understanding the real physics of your PC, hit that subscribe button right now. We are about to dive into the cold, hard reality of modern computing. To understand why your CPU looks the way it does today, we have to look back at the early 2000s when the industry hit a literal wall. For decades, the recipe for speed was simple: make the single core run faster. We pushed clock speeds higher and higher until we hit the thermal wall, where making a chip run any faster would effectively turn it into a miniature space heater capable of melting through the motherboard. Around 2005, the giants like Intel and AMD realized they couldn't make the individual worker any faster, so they decided to just hire more workers. This gave birth to the dual-core era. With chips like the Athlon 64X2 and the Pentium D, it was a revolution, but it was also a compromise. Think of a single-core CPU as a master craftsman, a one-man show who handles every detail from start to finish. When the workload got too heavy, the manufacturers didn't find a way to make him move at the speed of light. Instead, they just shoved more people into the workshop. By 2006, we had quad-core processors, and for a long time, the industry stagnated there. 4 cores became the gold standard because, frankly, software developers didn't know what to do with more. That all changed in 2017 when AMD released the Ryzen lineup, reigniting a core count war that has left the average consumer completely bewildered. But here is the dirty little secret the manufacturers don't want you to focus on. More cores do not automatically equal more speed. In fact, in many scenarios, having too many cores is like having a kitchen with 50 chefs, but only one stove. If the recipe you are cooking, which is your software, isn't designed to be broken down into 50 separate tasks, 49 of those chefs are just standing around getting paid to do nothing. This is the fundamental problem of parallel processing. Most of the things you do on a computer are sequential, meaning step B cannot happen until step A is finished. No matter how many cores you throw at a sequential task, it won't go any faster. This brings us to a concept called Amdahl's Law, the ultimate buzzkill of the tech world. Amdahl's Law states that the speedup of a program using multiple processors is limited by the time needed for the sequential fraction of the program. If only 50% of your code can run in parallel, then even if you had 1 million CPU cores, you could only ever make that program twice as fast. You eventually hit a ceiling where adding more hardware does absolutely nothing for performance. This is why a 64-core workstation might feel exactly the same as a 6-core budget build when you are just browsing the web or writing a document. The villain here is the marketing machine that sells you a race car to sit in a traffic jam. To see how this plays out in the real world, we have to look at how different tasks actually utilize your hardware. If we look at something like Cinebench, which is a rendering test, the results look spectacular. In this artificial environment, 16 cores perform vastly better than 8. It scales almost perfectly because rendering a 3D image is an embarrassingly parallel task. Each core can be assigned a tiny square of the image to color in, and they don't need to talk to each other to get it done. The tech companies love showing you these benchmarks because it justifies their existence. They want you to believe that your life is one giant Cinebench loop. But for 95% of users, it simply isn't. Take file compression and decompression as an example. When you zip a folder, you might notice that your high-end CPU isn't actually being fully utilized. Some algorithms benefit from simultaneous multithreading, or SMT, which is a trick where a single core handles 2 threads at once to fill in the gaps in its workflow. In our testing, decompression can see a massive 50% boost from this technology. But compression itself often hits a bottleneck. It's a reminder that even within the same category of work, the efficiency of your cores can fluctuate wildly based on how the software is written. Then there is the world of pure mathematics, like calculating the digits of pi into the billions. You would think this would be a playground for high core counts, but the results tell a different story. Performance here correlates almost entirely with raw physical core strength. SMT provides almost no benefit because the math is so intense that there are no gaps in the workflow for a second thread to squeeze into. This proves that more threads aren't a magic wand. Sometimes you just need bigger, faster individual engines, not more of them. Now let's talk about the thing most people actually care about: video encoding. If you are a content creator, You've been told you need the biggest chip on the shelf. But in X264 encoding tests, something interesting happens. Once you move past 12 cores, the performance gains start to fall off a cliff. The software simply cannot keep up with the hardware. You are spending hundreds of extra dollars for a 5% improvement in render times. The tech industry banks on your impatience, selling you the dream of instant results, while the software reality is much more sluggish. But the biggest slap in the face comes from the gaming world. For years, we've been told that modern games are multi-threaded marvels. The truth is much more depressing for the big-budget spenders. In a title like Final Fantasy XIV, a 4-core CPU performs almost identically to a 16-core CPU. Why? Because the game engine is bottlenecked by its primary thread. It is like a relay race where one runner has to carry the baton for 90% of the track while the other 15 runners just cheer from the sidelines. Even in a heavy hitter like Cyberpunk 2077, the scaling usually flatlines after 6 or 8 cores. Any core beyond that is just an expensive paperweight while you are in Night City. So why do we keep buying them? Because we've been conditioned to fear obsolescence. The tech giants play on our anxiety, suggesting that if we don't have 16 cores today, we won't be able to run the software of tomorrow. But history shows that software optimization moves at a glacial pace compared to hardware releases. A 6-core processor from 3 years ago is still a beast today for the average gamer. The victim in this scenario is the consumer who buys a flagship chip only to realize their motherboard and cooling costs have tripled just to support a processor they aren't even fully using. Speaking of cooling, let's talk about the heat. You might think that disabling cores would make your PC run ice cold, but the physics are counterintuitive. When you have fewer cores active, the CPU's internal logic sees all that extra thermal headroom and pushes the remaining cores to much higher clock speeds and voltages. This concentrates an intense amount of heat in a tiny area of the silicon. It's the difference between a large radiator and a blowtorch. High core count chips are actually often more efficient because they can spread the workload across more surface area at lower voltages. This is the one area where more cores actually provide a practical, physical benefit: power efficiency per watt of performance. But efficiency doesn't save you money if the entry price is 2 months' rent. When we look at the total landscape, a pattern emerges. For the vast majority of people, the students, the gamers, the office workers, the sweet spot is still 6 to 8 cores. This is the Goldilocks zone. It's enough to handle background tasks like Discord and Spotify while you play a game, without the massive price premium of the creator chips. If you are doing professional-grade 3D rendering or compiling massive codebases every day, then yes, 12 or 16 cores will change your life. But for everyone else, you are buying a semi-truck to pick up groceries. As we look toward the future, the trend of adding more cores is only going to continue because it's the easiest way for manufacturers to show a year-over-year improvement. They can't easily make the transistors smaller anymore, and they can't make the clocks much faster without liquid nitrogen. So they will give you 20 cores, then 24, then 32. They will market it with flashy graphs and buzzwords like AI integration and hyper-threading pro. Do not fall for it. The real performance of a computer isn't found in a marketing brochure. It's found in the balance between your hardware and your actual daily needs. In conclusion, the modern CPU market is a masterpiece of psychological warfare. It targets our desire for the best and our fear of being left behind. But when you strip away the hype, the numbers don't lie. For gaming and general use, anything beyond 8 cores is currently a luxury of diminishing returns. The extra money you spend on those idle cores could have been spent on a faster GPU, more RAM, or a better monitor, things that actually impact your experience every single second you use the machine. The lesson here is simple. Stop buying for the person you wish you were and start buying for the person you are. If you aren't rendering feature films or simulating the Big Bang, you don't need a server-grade processor in your bedroom. Be the smart consumer who understands that efficiency is the ultimate form of sophistication. Next time you see a shiny new 32-core processor being announced, look at it with a healthy dose of skepticism. Ask yourself, is this a tool for my work, or is it just a very expensive way to win an argument on a tech forum? If this breakdown helped you see through the silicon fog, make sure to subscribe and share this with someone who is currently overspending on their PC build. We need to stop the cycle of wasted hardware together. So, how many cores are you currently running, and be honest, how many of them are actually doing anything right now? Let me know in the comments. Let's start a conversation about real-world performance, not marketing fantasies.